Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale on what is, hey, the weeks are turning up here. Like, this is about as big as it gets for college basketball. All right, maybe not this week. Next week is when it really is big.
Yeah, butts are already starting to clinch. Yeah, our 200th show next week, right? I mean, we didn't, I like to think that we went back a few years and said, you know what, let's line up our 200th show right before the beginning of the 2024 NCAA tournament. So we know Arizona's guaranteed to still be in it at that point. No, we didn't do that. It just happens to work out that way, and we're very excited about it.
Yeah, we'll have a big show next week. We have giveaways, and we'll talk more about those later in the show. But Reggie Geary, color analyst for Arizona basketball on the road, Ryan Hansen at home, Reggie Geary on the road, going to join us. He was there in LA last week. He will be in Las Vegas this week. Works with Brian Jeffries, does an awesome job making it, I think, his second appearance on the show. So Looking forward to speaking with him. All right, Shane, before we get into a large buy or sell this week, do you have any standouts and or grievances?
I sure do. I have more of the standout variety, but first we got to start by mentioning Caleb Love, Pac-12 Player of the Year in men's basketball. Obvious choice. Well, I mean, there are some other choices. Maybe Keon Brooks at Washington or KJ Simpson. A former Wildcat Country guest, KJ Simpson at Colorado, was certainly contenders, but Caleb Love being the, if you want to keep it simple, best player on the best team, and you can certainly argue the best player in the Pac-12 this season. Very worthy of the award. That alpha that Arizona was looking for, definitely have. The USC game notwithstanding, we'll get into it, but a very well-deserved Player of the Year award in the Pac-12's final season. Want to go on to mention the baseball star, sophomore shortstop Mason White, who was 6 of 14 with 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, and a stolen base in Arizona's series win at USC. He has 7 home runs this season, which leads the Pac-12. He's batting .344, so he's off to a fantastic start for Arizona, even though the Wildcats are still hovering around 500. Softball, got to mention former Wildcat Country guest Allie Skaggs, who went 6 of 14 with 4 home runs in Arizona's 4 games last week. She hit a home run in her hometown of Louisville, which I know was special for her, even though Arizona did lose that game. But Arizona took 2 of 3 from Oregon State over the weekend. They're still ranked in the top 25, and Allie is a big reason for that. And last, I got to give a shout out to the entire men's tennis team and another former guest on the show, head coach Clancy Shields, for their national ranking of number 5 in the country. That's a new high for the program, which obviously doesn't get nearly as much attention as some of the others do at Arizona. But they are currently the highest ranked program at Arizona, and they deserve a big shout out for that. So they just beat number 11 Illinois on Sunday for their 8th straight team victory. They got another big game this week at number 7 USC. So congrats to Clancy Shields and the men's tennis team, and keep it going.
Number 5 in the country. How about that?
The national ITA ranking, number 5, yeah.
All right, so we've got number 5 tennis, number 6 men's basketball, and what was it, number 11 football? I mean, that's a pretty darn good year.
Got a ranked softball team as well, yeah.
Yeah, softball's ranked. Baseball's not going to be ranked. But wow, I mean, this, I honestly did not, you just don't think about it.
And gymnastics as well. Gymnastics is ranked as well.
Having a great year, Yep. So a lot to talk about. All right, it is time for an expanded buy or sell, which is presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. Go to iceshaker.com, use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, and get $5 off. And once you buy your Ice Shaker, fill out the post-purchase survey, mention Wildcat Country, and we will be very happy with you. We will be giving away some Ice Shakers next week on our show as well.
Super cool looking Ice Shakers, too. If you haven't seen them, we'll post them as we get closer to 200th episode. You're going to want to enter. We haven't exactly decided what contest we're going to do, but whatever it is, you're going to want to enter because these are really awesome Ice Shakers.
Yeah, both of our sponsors are going to chip in big time. We have a cool package from Harrah's Auction Casino. We have a cool Ice Shaker package, so it's pretty awesome. All right, here we go. Buy or sell, number 1. The loss to USC once again showed us that Arizona plays down to its opponents, which is a recipe for disaster in March, Shane.
I will buy the first part, yes. I don't think... I had it the other way around.
How can you not buy the second?
Well, I'll get there. Okay. So last week I had it that they were going to fall short against UCLA, but then rebound and beat USC. It was the other way around. And considering how they beat UCLA and they partied and Richard Jefferson joined them in the locker room and all that stuff,
we'll talk about that.
Shocked. I know, not shocked by the letdown at USC. I don't think that's the only reason. USC's been playing better. They're healthier than they were the last time. Not surprised by the result. To me, it just says that 1 seed is very unlikely. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later too, but Recipe for disaster in March. I don't know. I know everyone's got the Princeton game in their head from last year. I get that. And I am concerned a little bit that I feel like if Arizona can get past the first week, I feel really good about their chances the second week. But it's getting past that first game where maybe the crowd's not into it until later on, and they're supposed to be. But maybe if they're a 2 seed instead of a 1 seed, I don't know. It sounds simplistic, but it potentially could be disastrous because you have one bad half. That could be it. But I think this was, if nothing else, I don't say wake up call because they've had a number of wake up calls this year, but I'm just based on the way this team behaves, I'm not surprised by it. It doesn't change my opinion on the potential, emphasis on potential for them to make a lot of noise in the tournament.
All right, I'm going to buy this one. Yeah, it is a concern. The fact that they have lost to USC, Stanford, Oregon State.
That Oregon State loss is just inexcusable.
I mean, well, you shouldn't be in the game with Oregon State.
No.
When you were away from home, I mean, Washington State, I understand, and that's fine. At home, I mean, that was a tough one.
If any game is going to cost them a 1 seed, is that loss to Oregon State. That's their only quad 3 loss. It's their only really, really awful loss on their resume.
I mean, it wasn't great. The Stanford one also really stands out.
Yeah.
USC is playing better ball. We were concerned. I mean, there was reason for concern, but it is a recipe for disaster in March. I'm not worried about the first round game. The second round game, I think there is a chance you're going to play a Mountain West team, and Mountain West is deep. A Nevada, Boise State, a Utah State, even though, it'd be weird. Joe Lunardi currently has Utah State scheduled to play in Salt Lake City, which doesn't make sense for a 7 seed. Regardless, one of those teams, that's dangerous, like Nevada's a dangerous team if Arizona were to get them. So it's concerning that they do play down to their opponents. I'm not gonna panic about what we saw last week, but yeah, I'm concerned. All right, number 2. What happens this weekend in Vegas will be a significant factor regarding your optimism for Arizona's chances in the big dance.
No, I don't think so. I don't think what happens in the tournament in terms of seeding is going to matter much. I think Arizona, at this point, I think Arizona, there's a 90% chance they're going to be a 2 seed. That loss to USC, I think, pretty well locked them in. Lunardi, I know, has them as the number 6 overall seed right now, which I don't always agree with him, but I think he's probably spot on with this. I think Tennessee is probably the 4 overall, which means they're the last 1 seed. North Carolina is right behind them. They just won at Duke. Tennessee split a couple games with a couple of ranked opponents last week. So I think Arizona is probably very likely going to be a 2 seed. Maybe they sneak into the 1 seed if they win the Pac-12 tournament and a couple of their teams falter, or they slide all the way down to 3 if they lose in the first round of the tournament. I kind of doubt it, but it's possible. But no, I don't think so. I mean, look, Arizona won the Pac-12 tournament the last 2 years, and then look what happened. I don't think it matters that much. I just don't. It's fun to win those, but Arizona's been there, done that. And I think momentum, I think you can kind of recreate momentum when you get the NCAA tournament. I always go back to the 97 team. They lost their last 2 games of the regular season before they went to the tournament, so
that's a rarity. I mean, you can't lose on Thursday. I mean, you're going to play the winner, Washington and USC. You cannot lose that game. It does not matter. You cannot.
Isn't it Cal and USC?
No, Cal plays Stanford.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, it's Washington or USC. It's probably going to be USC. Arizona cannot lose that game. It's very simple. They can't. USC's playing good. They're talented enough to be a tournament team. They just had injury luck. You can't lose back to back. So then it kind of leads into the next question. What's the worst case for Arizona seeding if they were to lose that game?
Yeah,
could they drop to a 3?
Yeah, I kind of jumped the gun on that one. Yeah, potentially. There are teams like Iowa State and I don't know. Duke is kind of down there as a 3. I don't think they're going to jump up. So potentially, just because it depends on if the selection committee puts as big an emphasis on the bad losses as they do the quality wins. And we'll have to see if that happens. And we've heard from more than one analyst that the idea that the selection committee really heavily weighs the conference tournaments is actually not necessarily true. I think it could, if you end up, going on a hot streak and winning out, like when the last 8 or 9 games, including the conference tournament, that can make it a big deal. But I think very likely Arizona, even if they win the conference tournament, they're going to be a 2 seed, most likely in the West. Maybe the selection committee decides to punish them and put them as a 2 seed somewhere else, but then you're going to punish another 2 seed by putting them out West when that's not geographically favorable to them. So I think a 2 in the West is like 90%. At this point, maybe 5% 1 seed, 5% 3 seed.
I think that they're pretty much a 2 seed and probably a 2 seed in the West. I don't know that anything can. I mean, Tennessee, if they lost badly in the first round, I'd say there's about
Maybe.
a one, maybe a 2% chance that they could move up to a one. But I think we're pretty much locked in to a 2 seed in the West, which is fine. I think you have to be in the West, and I think with one win on Thursday, regardless of what happens on Friday against, I think it would be Oregon or UCLA in all
Yeah.
likelihood.
Yeah.
I think if you win on Thursday, you're okay. You're a 2 seed in the West.
Agree.
If everything broke right, North Carolina gets knocked out early in the ACC tournament, Tennessee gets knocked out early in the SEC tournament, U of A looks dominant in Vegas. Okay, maybe there's an argument there, but I'd say that's about a 2% chance. I think there's a 98% chance that they are going to be, 97% chance they're going to be a 2 seed. I think there's a 1% chance they're a 3 seed if they were to look bad and get blown out by
So we only
US.
have about a 7% disagreement there. I think you and I are pretty much on the same page.
Pretty much, we're buying each other's stuff. All right, number 4. I know this is something you've talked about, Shane. Richard Jefferson filled in for Bill Walton last Thursday against UCLA. It was a fun game. Arizona blew him out. Jefferson said on the broadcast, he's like, listen, I'm going to be a homer. I'm an Arizona guy. I personally, and I'll just say this off the bat, I enjoyed the broadcast. I thought it was funny. He was upfront about it, and I didn't have a single problem with it. But I'm guessing you did.
Well, of course, if you're a Wildcat fan, you're not going to have a problem with it. And I think some people
you are.
Some people listening and watching are rolling their eyes at me already right now. But look, if I don't know, Don McClain were calling that game, and UCLA had a conference championship on the line, and they beat Arizona, and he says, hell yeah, I'm rooting for my Bruins. And then he goes and celebrates in the locker room with UCLA afterwards. Would Arizona fans maybe be a little peeved about it?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm just saying, I remember one of the things that I thought about when I was listening to Richard Jefferson. By the way, I enjoyed his commentary a lot. Okay. He's an entertaining guy, and I hope to hear him more often. I remember in the 2012 Arizona-Florida game in Tucson, that classic game where Arizona came back in the last minute. Miles Simon was on commentary for that game. Mm-hmm. I remember because I was at the arena, and I remember during a TV timeout, they showed Miles Simon on the big screen, and the PA announcer said, let's give a big hand for Wildcat alum Miles Simon. He gets a big ovation. You could tell Miles Simon was a little uncomfortable with it, like he's trying to be like in impartial reporter mode. He kind of gave like a nice wave to the crowd. He didn't like stand up and cheer, do the bear down or the Wildcat signal, whatever. He didn't do any of that. So I actually respected that. It's like, I'm here to be impartial for this game. Richard Jefferson, I guess he figured, look, everyone knows I'm not going to be partial or anyway, so I might as well just go with it. But I'm just saying, I enjoyed it as a Wildcat fan, but I also in the back of my mind thinking if it was the UCLA, we would be pissed if it was on the other side. I'm just saying.
But Shane, you look at McClain as a UCLA guy, Bill Walton's a UCLA guy. I mean, it gets annoying. I get it. And if you're a UCLA person, it gets annoying. But you know whose fans are ridiculous on social media? UCLA. I mean, these people, some of their reporters, and I won't.
Oh, I agree with that.
They are not good. And I'm just going to say that. No. Not good. And they are biased. So you know what? Good. Of all opponents where that's going to happen, good. Because who's the most obnoxious fan base? Outside of maybe Arizona in the Pac-12, it's definitely
no. I just feel like it's okay to walk and chew gum at the same time. It's that you're capable of doing that. In other words, it's okay to realize that it was okay to fully enjoy Richard Jefferson's commentary and the celebration he did after the game, but also realize that if it were the other way around, we would be as livid on social media as most UCLA fans would be. That's my only point, and that's the only thing that I just couldn't get out of my head after that game.
Okay, fair enough. I know there will be some disagreement there. All right,
that's fine.
So Portland just shocked Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference Women's Tournament, and they stole a bid. That they're a bid stealer.
Oh no!
So that just happened. Recording this on Tuesday night. Shane, Arizona has been right on the bubble to make the NCAA tournament. They were the second to last team in. So now they are probably the last
according to ESPN bracketologist Charlie Cream, who does the bracketology on the women's side and has been doing it forever. Yeah.
So Arizona's lost they went 17-15. Now they won at Stanford, who's probably going to be a 1 seed. That was a great win. Does a 15-loss team really deserve an NCAA tournament? I know the conference is strong.
Yeah. However, I think number one, you can look to the metrics, and last I saw, the women's team had a net ranking of 34, which is pretty strong. Usually that usually at least a solid case. But I think one problem with the net rankings and really with RPI before that, even though net I think is better, is that you still get rewarded for playing good teams, whether you beat them or not. And I understand that. I think maybe you should be rewarded for that. But if it's in your conference and you have to be bumped up in the net rankings because you had no choice but to play these teams. I don't know about that. I mean, I'm really proud of how this team battled after all the injuries and the defections, whatever you want to call them. They were down to really 7 players with an 8th as a walk-on they added at the end of the season, and that was it. I think they really needed to beat USC in one of those 2 games to really have a good chance. Absolutely. I think that would have gotten them in. They had that 5-point lead with less than 40 or 30 seconds left at home against USC. You got to finish. They do that, and they played USC tough in Vegas too, and they came up short in both games. I think they needed one more marquee win. You look at that win at Stanford, and as great as it was, the committee might say, yeah, but their star Cameron Brink didn't play. So I think you weigh all those things, and you have the bid stealers like you just talked about. I think they're going to be on the outside looking in. I think, as much as I hate to say it, they probably should be, because I just think they needed one more marquee victory.
Yeah, I think they're probably out as well. I think they're probably a 1 seed in the NIT, and I hope McHale Center gets a good crowd like they did a few years ago, and maybe propels shows this team who's been shorthanded all season and has been playing out their rear end. I mean, they played so hard.
Oh yeah,
but they are not an NCAA. I would be, if they get in. I'm happy to be wrong, and they'll probably in a play-in game. But I personally do not think a 15-loss team belongs in the NCAA tournament unless they win their conference tournament. And they needed, you're right, they needed one of those 2 USC games.
One more win, yeah.
And we talked about that the other week. Then they didn't get them. They blew that lead. Last one here in buy or sell. So Ted Robinson came on last week and gave a prediction about members of the current Pac-12 conference reuniting in the next decade or so in the non-football sports to regionalize things. Do you buy or sell that notion by Ted?
I'll sell the idea that the Pac-12 is going to, like, the band's going to get back together, so to speak. But I do really like the idea, and I hope that it does happen, where some of the non-revenue sports, whatever you want to call them, they end up kind of breaking apart and creating more of these regional conferences. Like for example, it makes no sense for Arizona beach volleyball, which is a good beach volleyball team, to go across the country to play conference opponents. It doesn't make any sense.
None.
Arizona, ASU, GCU, UCLA, USC, they all have very good beach volleyball teams, established beach volleyball teams. Why not have them make their own conference? Maybe add a couple more teams in there. And so that you don't even have to fly. You travel, you take a nice bus. I hate to say it, but I'm just saying that realistically, that's what's going to keep some of these sports afloat at these programs. Where and beach volleyball is just one example, but you get the point, where it just doesn't make sense to have to travel so much for these sports that aren't generating revenue. I want to see them stay. And Arizona has more sports than the average Big 12 school. I think that Arizona has 23, and the average Big 12 school has just under 20. And Arizona's facing a revenue problem, as we know, big one. So I think I would like to see, I don't know if it would come down to each individual sport, but outside of football and maybe men's basketball, maybe even women's basketball, when you get down to it, create more of these regional conferences where you have a lot less of those travel expenses and you can keep more of those sports afloat. To me, that's an absolute no-brainer, and I hope something like that does happen.
Yeah, I would agree. I think within the next decade, it's conceivable that we will see the non-football sports. I don't know about basketball. I'm not sure what that will look like, but it would make sense. And I don't know if USC and UCLA would ever leave the Big Ten. Probably not. Once you're in, you don't want to leave that. But I could, and same with Oregon and Washington. But you can make an argument: Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, Washington State, Arizona, Arizona State. Maybe Colorado and Utah. Band together and maybe add a couple here or there. San Diego State or UNLV, something like that, and then they have a non-football conference, whatever. Maybe that's the new Pac whatever.
Yeah.
But I definitely could see that. I think it makes a lot of sense. As you all know, Wildcat Country is sponsored by Harrah's Auction Casino. Hey, Wildcat fans, do you want to win a brand new car? I mean, who wouldn't? It's time to play for your chance to drive one away. Harrah's Auction Casino is celebrating its 30th anniversary with Win Your Wheels giveaway. With the Win Your Wheels giveaway, it's your chance every month to win a new car. Just play your favorite slots at Harrah's Auction using your Caesars Rewards card on the last Saturday of each month to win your wheels. The more you play, the more entries you will receive. Harrah's Auction Casino, play for all. Coming up next, Reggie Geary here on Wildcat Country.
What's up, Wildcat Country? Chris Gronkowski here, and I'm at the Ice Shaker Warehouse, the proud sponsor of the Wildcat Country podcast. And I got something new and exciting to show you. We're talking about the 4D printed University of Arizona shaker bottles with the Legacy Championships on it. Check it out now at iceshaker.com.
Shane, it is Pac-12 Tournament week, and there's no one better to join us than a former Wildcat legend. And also, he's the color commentator for Arizona basketball on the road, and he'll be there in Las Vegas this weekend. Reggie Geary joining us here in Wildcat Country. I think the second time on the show. Reggie, glad to have you. Thank you so much. So you saw Arizona this weekend in LA, great against UCLA, not so good against USC. Does this team, in your opinion, have what it takes to make a Final Four? Does it have the fortitude? Does it have the talent? Does it have the makeup of a Final Four team, in your opinion?
I think it does, especially when you look at the national landscape. You know, there are some dominant teams out there. And we look at maybe Purdue and UConn, maybe Tennessee's maybe in there a little bit, Houston. But there's great parity, you know, even at the very top with the elite teams. And so I think Arizona has a better than good chance in terms of their top 8 guys are all quality guys. Even though the bench is fairly young, they've been super solid. Caleb Love is a go-to guy, is a guy like Ben Mathurin was 2 years ago, where you can give him the basketball. He can be a real difference maker down the stretch. They have a 5, they have guards, so they have a lot of pieces, and they got Tommy Lloyd, a great coach. So I like their chances.
Yeah, Reggie, like Eric said, thanks so much for joining us again. It's been way too long in between visits, and hopefully the next one won't be quite as long. We've all had a chance to overreact to the USC game, and I'm as cynical a Wildcat alum as you'll find, but I wasn't shocked by the result. You know, you have the big celebration at UCLA, maybe a little bit tougher to get up for USC, and USC's been playing better. They're finally getting healthy. What are your thoughts about the USC letdown?
Yeah, you know, we going into the game, Brian and I were kind of talking about it and thinking about it, you know, how much of human nature was going to play into it. You know, you have a big win on Thursday, you wrap up the regular season championship at Pauley Pavilion, and you don't know if there's going to be a letdown. And you're hoping there isn't. And we talked about senior-laden team and, you know, obviously this competitive nature and wanting to finish the season on the right note, and all those things are true, but human nature has it where you just dial it back some. We talked about in the radio a little bit. You just take a little bit of the edge off. And I thought earlier in the game, there was definitely some fight there. The referees really let USC be physical and just kind of took us out of our game a little bit. More importantly, kind of frustrated, especially Caleb Love. He just wasn't getting to the free throw line. He really wasn't getting going. And then I thought there was just a point where they just said, you know what? We won the regular season. Let's just get out of here and go home.
Yeah, and I tend to agree, even though I'm not crazy about it, but I'd rather it be that than they're just not that good, because I think we know better by now. A question I've asked one guest after another in the last month or two is just the impact that Kylan Boswell has on this team, because I feel like this team will go as far as he takes them. Not to say that he has to be their best player. I think Caleb Love is their best player, certainly. But when he plays well, Arizona tends to win. When he disappears, they tend to lose. I think he's really that X factor for this team. What are your thoughts?
I'm in agreement. Kylan Boswell is the X factor. You know, one of the stats I've been talking about a lot lately is when Kylan scores 10 plus or more during a game, they're 19-1. So if you ever need a statistic to prove his how valuable is that is it, because you know what you're going to get out of Caleb Love. You have a good idea what you're going to get out of Pella Larson and Umar Ballo. And so Kylan kind of becomes that guy where if his number as a point guard in the minutes that he gets isn't where it's supposed to be, the drop-off is significant. And so he needs to play well. He needs to play free and aggressive offensively.
Is there anything you need to see in Vegas this weekend from this team? Do you need them to win it all? Do you need them to win one game? Like, is there anything that's going to show you something after what we saw on Saturday?
Just how tough they are. You know, they've displayed it at times that on a big stage against good teams, they're tough. The Pac-12 tournament is 3 days in a row. Hopefully you get past that first one, but every night it's a fist fight. And we've seen that the last couple of years in the Stanford first round games where I'm sitting on the court side saying, oh, I think we can lose this game if this thing is still in peril. And that's a first round game. And so every single night, it's like the NCAA tournament to a degree in shorter span where you just got to be tough and resilient. And so I'm looking for that continued toughness.
Is there anything of this year's team that reminds you of your 1994 squad, which went to the Final Four? Is there any comparisons? Maybe you and Caleb Love. I don't know. I'm just throwing some things out there that you may see. Hey, okay, that we could Khalid Reeves and Caleb, something like that.
Yeah, I think there are some similarities there when you really look at them. If you go player by player, Colin Boswell, it probably isn't at the level of Damon Steyer was in 94, but he has that potential. Scoring point guard. Caleb and Khalid, very good comparison there. Two strong body guards who can get to the rim, can shoot the three and put a big number on you. I have no problem saying, Pelle Larson's kind of that do-all guy. He's kind of the Swiss Army knife. Great defender, takes tons of charges. Really has looked fantastic this last month of the season, like almost like an all Pac-12 like player of the year type candidate. He just made things look very, very easy. Rayos and Kashad Johnson, similar. Kashad's a little bouncier, Ray's a little bit better shooter. And then you have Ballo and Blair, both big body bigs. You can get the ball to in the post. Both teams like to get up and down, have multiple guys, 3-4 guys who can grab a rebound and push the break and really push that tempo. And so I like the comparison. I do.
I'm going to make us all feel real old, so I apologize in advance. But I actually remember, and you guys got to the Final Four, and you came up short against a very good Corliss Williamson, Nolan Richardson coach Arkansas team. That day was the day, Eric, that my nephew, who we watched the Alamo Bowl with, was born.
Is that right?
He's going, yeah, I remember that day, because later in the day, I think Florida beat Duke. And I watched that game at the hospital because he was about to be born. He's about to turn 30. So that shows that tells you how old we are. But I remember watching the game. I remember there was this commercial where Bill Frieder, ASU's coach at the time, was like eating popcorn, watching, cheering on Arizona, which was awesome. But so I all that to say that I know you guys entered the tournament as a 2 seed, and you ran roughshod over everyone your first 4 games, beat everyone by double digits, including number 1 seed Missouri by 20 points. Were you guys just on a roll going into that the NCAA tournament, or did you just kind of hit a new gear once you got there?
Honestly, to be honest with you, it was it started a year earlier, when we went down to Australia, went down to Melbourne, or excuse me, to Australia for our foreign trip. And it was the first time Coach Olsen kind of had brought out the 3-guard offense, right? We had Chris Mills, in previous years, but now we were going to really play 3 point guards, Damon Stoudemire, Khalid Reeves, and myself at the 1, 2, and 3. Coaches figuring that athletically I could guard multiple positions and maybe we could look for an up-tempo style. And we got things going well there. Start the season on the roll. We go out to Maui. We lose to Kentucky, Rick Pitino coach team at the buzzer. Guy shoots a half-court shot, no box out with the tip in. Even though we had lost that, we still thinking like we have something. Going to Pac-12 play, we're strong through Pac-12 play. We have the best backcourt in the country, hands down. Like, we know this. This is not a secret. Damon and Khalid are absolutely killing it. Defensively, I'm doing my thing. We ran through Michigan during the Fiesta Bowl Classic in McHale. So we know we have something. And so there was really no surprise that we started the tournament off, with a mindset that, we could go all the way. And keep in mind, we had lost the year before to Santa Clara. So we still had that, defense up. Like, hold on, we just lost last year in the first round. We had something then too as well. So this time we're going to protect it. We're going to be ultra focused, hyper focused, and luckily we were able to get it done.
No, wait,
go ahead.
I was just thinking about comparisons here. All right.
Yeah.
So we have a team, if I'm right, it was a number 2 seed that lost in a year that ended in 3. Yep. And then the next team was a 2 seed that went to the Final Four. Yeah. 4. Is that right? Am I
I hate thinking about that stuff, but yeah. But to your point, Reggie, though, I mean, you were on alert because you didn't want, because I feel like this Arizona team this year, sometimes they get a little bored and they don't play as well when they're kind of going into a gym that's not too loud and team they're supposed to beat, but they get up for the bigger games. That is a little bit my concern, is that like maybe they'll get caught napping a little bit early in this tournament. But is it possible, based on the guys who played last year and came up short to 15 seed Princeton, maybe that's a little less likely in your opinion?
I think that in combination with Caleb Love and Keshad Johnson have been making late, deep runs into the tournaments themselves, both playing in final games. So they know what it takes to get there and how you can't really sleepwalk on those first, that from that first game on, that, every game is difficult. To your point, I think Arizona at times has got a little bored with the competition, and maybe it's bit them in the butt. More importantly, what not alarms me, but the thing that I'm keeping an eye out for from here on out is tempo. that when teams slow tempo down on us and we have a poor shooting night in combination, and that other team shoots around 50%, that seems to be a formula for disaster. And so I'm really looking at tempo and seeing how much we can control it.
What team is there? A teams like I know obviously you're gonna say UConn, but is there another team that scares you in terms of a matchup for Arizona?
I mean, Houston, what that defense is suffocating.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what they did to Kansas this past weekend was incredible. That kind of a style is difficult. Purdue, even though we've seen them once, Zach Edey's a problem. And his ability to control the game by either being a facilitator or a dominator. We saw that firsthand. Is impressive. But you just never know with so many super seniors and COVID seniors and all these teams with all these older players. It really makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of, to pick out that outlier.
And Reggie, when I say about filling out brackets, friends don't let friends per don't. Every year you just got to know you can't. As good as Purdue is during the regular season, if they win in the tournament, I'm sorry, but I cannot take them. As far as what this team mentally, last year we saw a team that was afraid to take a shot. Like they needed you or Khalid or Damon in the somebody like that who wasn't afraid. This year, I feel like it's different. Caleb's not afraid. He just takes 3-pointers from half court, which are probably not going to get it done. Do you feel the same way that mentally this team's just so much tougher?
Yeah, I really do. When you look at how they're made up, and it's a good balance between older players and younger players. You have Caleb who shows no fear, shooter's mentality. The next shot's going in. Pella Larson, if he can stay out of foul trouble, solid as a rock. Omar Ballo, another guy who's had a lot of experience under his belt, now has this conditioning, it seems, in place, and he has just been dominant. I'm forgetting about a couple other guys, but Colin Boswell, he's more mature. Jaden Bradley is just, Plymouth Rock, this guy. He is a stone, makes no mistakes, does everything really, really well. And KJ and Mo. So they're set 8. I don't see any back down in them. They just got to stay together and just keep believing what Tommy wants to happen.
Yeah. So scheduling that tough non-conference schedule, that Lute Olson-esque non-conference schedule that Tommy put together, that I know Eric is still very afraid of. And Arizona not only played those games, but they won a lot of them. And you mentioned that obviously in the '94 season, you guys got some confidence early on by playing, either winning or playing tough against some top competition. Is that something that, even though those games were several months ago, could prove valuable going into the NCAA tournament for this team?
Oh, without question in my mind. That's why you play games like that. You want to kick the tires throughout the season in the beginning, middle, and end. And unfortunately, Pac-12 wasn't as strong this year from top to bottom as that's been in years and decades past. And so it was imperative that they got those big games, got a little taste for what it's like being in that atmosphere, seeing that size and physicality, because we didn't necessarily see that at all times in the Pac-12. So I think it was definitely a good thing.
Last question for you, Reggie. And again, we really appreciate your time. I love this conversation. Wish we could talk for another hour or two. Tell me a little bit about Tommy Lloyd and how he maybe has matured as a head coach. We don't talk about it because he did so well in this first season, but he has that time now. How has he sort of matured as a head coach in his third season? And then, do you think that is going to help him be maybe a better NCAA tournament coach? Even though I don't necessarily blame him for the shortcomings the first 2 years, is that something that he might learn from going into year 3?
I mean, Tommy's such an intelligent guy, has such a high basketball IQ, real student of the game. You could tell, especially on the offensive end, of the flexibility and the creativity and some of the things he does on that end defensively, also very strong. And so I've seen him grow. When he first came in, he was a first-year head coach, and you could tell a little bit. I always laugh because I always say Tommy's been, he was at Gonzaga 20 years, and for all 20 years, they probably won 95% of their games.
Yeah.
And so I'm always kind of looking at to see what he's doing when times are tough. And there hasn't been that many times to really check him out because the team has been so good. But yeah, he's grown. He understands, I think time and score and game situations and his personnel. And so all those things over 3 years, if you're as good as he is, and he is very good, you're going to learn. And so I expect him to be just sharper and better and make those right decisions when called upon.
2 questions for you, Reggie. The 2 last ones. Is it fair to say this is Final Four or bust for Arizona?
No, it's Final Four or bust. for me, it's like that every year. I'm sorry. I'm
Okay.
from, the year when we were going every 4 years. If we've done Sweet 16, we've done Elite Eights. I think, this is a Final Four team, and we should have high expectations. Tucson
Yeah.
Wildcats, as we all are, we have high expectations, and we should hold the team to that.
I absolutely love it. And finally, your favorite Pac-12 memory or what you'll miss most about this conference?
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
I
Man,
mean, over the years, yeah, just so many. It's crazy to think about, isn't it?
It really is, growing up in Southern California and, watching the Sean Elliott Arizona teams and being around UCLA and seeing all the great coaches, George Raveling, and great players that have come through the league over time. It's definitely a sad time, just to see the history of the game kind of, disappear to a degree. What happens for all these great names and memories and things that occurred in our conference, they just go by the wayside of some conference that does no longer exist. So, rooting for the Pac-2 to keep things in place until we come back. But
hey, the Pac-2's been rough for us this season.
Seriously.
Well, it's funny. We had Ted Robinson on, from Pac-12 Network, and he believes that except in football, and maybe not the Southern California schools, that all the other schools will reunite within the next decade. Do you believe that?
I do believe that. I believe we'll see some super conferences maybe in football and basketball, and everybody will go back to kind of a regional Northwest, East and South type deal. Because from a Olympic sport and some of the sports that don't raise as much revenue, it just doesn't make sense to be flying them across country and putting them in hubs. So I definitely see that occurring. But I do want to answer your question though really quick. I just want to say, going into Pauley Pavilion as an Arizona Wildcat, as a Southern California kid who went to modern day high school, was an almost overwhelming moment just to be in that experience and to be in that pageantry, and then to be it for 4 years and to grow and just play against Jason Kidd up in Cal, Brent Berry at Oregon State, just all those memories of competitive nights. I'll definitely miss.
Richie, do you think Arizona's going to be able to find a way to keep that rivalry going with UCLA?
I hope so. It really is a good one. Maybe it'll be a 1 or 2 year little hiatus, but I would love to see the head coaches and ADs get together and just lock that thing in for a long time.
The Pac-12 could probably use another commissioner because this, or whatever they are, Pac-2. Reggie, you should probably apply one of these days, but we're happy to have you working at the U of A. Great to talk with you, as always. Best of luck this weekend in the tournament on the radio broadcasts, and we'll be listening.
Hey, Eric, Shane, I appreciate it, guys, and all the listeners out there. Bear down.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi, folks. Here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for all at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
Shane, that was awesome to catch up with Reggie Geary.
So good.
I wish we had him on more often, but great insight going into these big weeks for Arizona basketball.
Yeah, I love it. And of course, the parallel with the Arizona losing to a 15 seed the year before they got to the Final Four. Hopefully history repeats itself. Do you happen to remember, Eric, the year before Arizona lost to the 15 seed Santa Clara, they were a 3 seed and they lost to the 14 seed in the first round. Do you remember who that team was?
I know they lost to Miami of Ohio later in the 90s.
Yeah.
So I don't think that was
it.
Wasn't
that? No. It was East Tennessee State, 14 seeded East Tennessee State in 92. And then 15 seed Santa Clara was Steve Nash in 93. And they get to the Final Four in 94. So
I will say this. There probably is not a big name school in the country with worse losses in the tournament to no-name schools than Arizona. Santa Clara, East Tennessee State, Miami of Ohio, Princeton. I mean, it's bad.
I had a coworker stop by who's an ASU alum and likes to tease me a little bit here and there. Just all in fun, all in good fun. I got some U of A stuff on the wall, and he gives me crap about it. But
of course.
He did mention the NCAA tournament's coming back up, and he said, Arizona's a really good team, but he said, you know what? They always choke. They always choke. And I wish I had some sort of witty retort. I guess I could have said, well, when's the last time ASU won? Got past the whatever. But it's like, yeah, you're right. You're right.
They do. I mean, Arizona and Purdue are right there, like
Yeah.
teams that. And I was talking to somebody who, I work with at Sportsline, who's a handicapper, and he put out a social video this week, and he basically said Arizona's a fraud.
Yeah.
And I scolded him on that. I
don't
don't
know
think
about
this version of Arizona is, but I know that there are Arizona fans and probably some of you listening that think that this Wildcat team isn't going to go very far. The next few weeks will be, dare I say, gut wrenching. Your blood pressure will rise. Make sure to have the Tums on hand. It's going to get nerve-wracking. Just get past the first weekend.
Yeah.
All I ask is that, we're going to do a show next week, obviously, to preview the tournament. I want to have that show in 2 weeks where we're talking about a Sweet 16 match. I don't really care who it's against. Just get those first 2 wins, and then we can worry about it from there. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Yeah, it's like I said, it's officially butt clenching season again, and I think we're all already, even before the Pac-12 tournament, we're all guarding and protecting our hearts closely because we've opened them up so many times and we've been hurt so many times before. And the hope is there again that this team could go far, and you just got to wait and see.
So Shane, one place that you can find Wildcat Country is on the Autograph app. Tell us about them.
Yeah, Autograph, founded by Tom Brady. The whole idea of Autograph is to reward college sports fans simply for being fans. And by the way, they're not a sponsor of ours. They're just it's a great app. We happen to be on it. You download the Autograph app and you subscribe to the Arizona channel, preferably by using referral code Wildcat Country, all one word, all lowercase. And you'll find pretty much all the Arizona related media content that you already consume all in one place, including our podcast, which is the most important, of course. And for every story you read, every podcast episode you download, you'll accrue points that you can use to buy some cool stuff, some cool U of A related stuff. So definitely check us out on Autograph. They also have some ticket giveaways and some other giveaways, so check those out. And that's another reason to download the app and keep the notifications open. But check us out on Autograph, subscribe to the Arizona channel, and you'll help us out. And we think you're really going to like the app and get all your Arizona Wildcats news, including us, all in one spot.
Awesome. Then there you have it. All right, it's time for picks. We're going to do a limited slate. We're going to pick the winners of 4 conferences, including the Pac-12, and what will Arizona's fate be this weekend. Let's start in the ACC, Shane. Who do you have winning the ACC tournament?
Well, and we mentioned it already, Tennessee is fighting for that final number 1 seed, so they have everything to play for in this tournament. You're talking about the ACC. I'm thinking Tennessee, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was looking at the SEC. North Carolina and Tennessee are kind of in the same boat. North Carolina is fighting for that number 1 seed. I think they're going to beat Duke for the 3rd time this season in the ACC championship game and win that tournament. Even though they're probably looking at a 2 seed. If Tennessee wins the SEC tournament, I think North Carolina takes it.
I am going to say it goes the other way. I'm going Duke over North Carolina. I actually think the Blue Devils on a neutral court in Washington, D.C. are going to show why they were a preseason top 10 team. And probably, I doubt they can move to a 2 seed, but if they look impressive and beat North Carolina, yeah, I could see it. So I'm going Duke in that one. How about the SEC, Shane? Are you going with Tennessee or are you taking someone else?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're the best team of the SEC, just ahead of Alabama. I know they lost a close game to Kentucky, and Kentucky's starting to put it together right now. I hope they're not in Arizona's bracket. But Tennessee's fighting for a 1 seed, like North Carolina. They got everything to play for in this tournament. I'll take the Vols to win it, bounce back from that home loss to Kentucky, and probably secure the 1 seed in the West.
I am actually going to disagree with you here. I think Tennessee loses to Auburn in the semifinals, and I think Kentucky keeps their hot play going in a high-scoring SEC championship game. I'm going Kentucky over Auburn in that game. How about the Big 12, Arizona's future conference? This is a murderer's row, and Kansas isn't even a factor because they're missing their 2 best players.
Yeah, I might have picked Kansas because the tournament's in Kansas City, and the Jayhawks enjoy kind of the nice home court edge in those games like Arizona does at the Pac-12 tournament, which we're going to miss starting next year. But yeah, Kansas is missing a couple key players, so I'm going to make the boring pick and go with Houston, the regular season champions, over Iowa State in the championship game. I think Iowa State's capable of beating Houston at a neutral site. They played Houston tough on the road. I think Houston's just a bit too good, especially on defense, like we talked about, like Reggie Geary talked about. It's not like they need it, but I think they'll win and certainly erase any doubt about earning the number 1 seed in the South region.
I will go with Houston as well, but I think Baylor will beat Iowa State in the Big 12 semifinals, and I think Houston will beat them, and that's a tough team that I would hope is on the other side of Arizona's bracket. I would love to be on Purdue's side, let UConn and Houston be on the other side, and worry about them in the championship game. if it all works out that well on a Monday night in Glendale. All right. So how many games? Well, let's Pac-12. I think this is where I'm going to start. Who's going to win this conference? And I'll make it, there's kind of two questions. How many games will Arizona win this week? And will they win the Pac-12 tournament? I'm going to say, yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, I'm going to say Arizona wins it. I think they bounce back. I think they beat USC. I think they beat an Oregon team that for the third time. And then I think they beat Colorado in the championship game. So I'd say Arizona wins 3 games this weekend. How about you, Shane?
Well, I'll put it this way. If that is the championship game matchup, I will take Arizona to win it all. I think they bounce back and beat USC. They're going to have that home court edge, and they still haven't lost 2 games in a row under Tommy Lloyd. I think they probably beat USC, beat the Oregon UCLA winner in the semifinals, probably Oregon. If it's Washington State again, I'm going to lean Washington State. I know the Cougars have struggled a bit. They just lost to Washington at home. They didn't look as great at home against USC and UCLA. And really, since they played Arizona, they haven't looked as good. But it's just a tough matchup for Arizona. And like Reggie said, when Arizona's opponents are able to slow the tempo a bit, that's when they struggle. And so I will pick them to finish just short of another Pac-12 tournament title. I wouldn't be really mad about it because I think this team could maybe, if they went into the NCAA tournament with a bit of a chip on their shoulder, a little ticked off going into facing a 15 seed, that's not the worst thing. I think if that's the matchup, I would pick Washington State to beat Arizona for a third time. But if it's Arizona and anyone else, I would take Arizona to win it.
All right. So, but your official pick is Washington
State over Arizona. Yes.
Okay. All right. There it is. It's coming up next week, our 200th show. We have giveaways, as we talked about earlier in the show. Harris Auction has a really cool package that they're going to give away, Ice Shaker as well. So stay tuned for that. We'll tell you how you can win. I'll just give you a hint right now. If you're not following us on YouTube, probably not a bad idea to subscribe to our YouTube page. I'm just gonna say that, and that's my little teaser. And we'll give you the official rules as we go along here. But 200 episodes, pretty wild. We've made it through 199, and let's hope 200 is previewing a very successful March Madness, Shane.
Well, hopefully we get to episode, would it be 202, and we can talk about a Final Four.
Well, we may do bonus episodes in between.
That's true. Depending might be 203, 204. We'll see.
You're right. Yeah.
If the public demands it, we'll do it. Absolutely.
We might have to do some post-game shows, so we'll see about that. Maybe some live streams. We'll get there. But
one game at a time.
That's exactly right. Thanks to Reggie Geary for joining us. Thanks to Harris Auction for sponsoring us. Thanks to Ice Shaker for sponsoring us. And exciting stuff coming up next week with show number 200. So for Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening, and as always, bear down.